Hello, hi, my name is Holly Walsh and welcome to the Actors in Conversation comedy performance. This is part of the BAFTA television, The Sessions. It's a series to celebrate some of the nominees and the nominated programmes in this year's Virgin Media British Academy Television Awards and the British Academy Television Craft Awards. This is a virtual event on behalf of BAFTA and it's going to learn about how these actors go about doing such an amazing job and making us laugh so much. Check out BAFTA.org and BAFTA's social channels for more activity and news. And thank you to our supporters, TCL. So, bit of in-flight safety announcements. We are streaming this event on YouTube and Facebook, and you'll be able to rewatch it there if you miss anything. Please join the conversation using BAFTA TV sessions. So that's hashtag BAFTA TV sessions. And please ask us questions. As you can see there somewhere on the bottom of your screen on the Zoom Q&A function. Ask us anything you like. Closed captions are also available at the bottom of your screen from now. And finally, this is the bit we've all been waiting for. Please welcome our panelists. First of all, Sian Clifford. Is she there? Yes! One dance is like a terrible game show. Next, Jamie Demetriou.
Hi, Holly.
Hey! Wow, look, you're staying at Laura Ashley's house, so that's lovely.
Yes. Well, thanks for ruining it. Hi,
next, Ncuti Gatwa, who plays Eric in Sex Education. Hello.
Hello.
Gbemisola Ikumelo.
Hello.
Wow, what a reveal.
Wow.
What a reveal.
My gosh, so you must have spent a lot on the effects of that.
I have people.
Youssef Kerkour.
Hello.
Yes. And last but not least, Guz Khan. Leaving us. He's it's all about the suspense. Have we lost him?
Now I'm here, but there you go. Boom.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so here we have everybody in the house. So this is very exciting. Have I missed anybody? No, that is everybody. Okay, great. Sorry about this. Right. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on your incredible nominations. I can't believe it, and you must be so excited. I've never been nominated, but you're living my dream. But I'd like to start by saying that I should, my agenda is I'm a writer, so I'm going to ask you loads of questions that I always want to ask actors that I've worked with but haven't. So first of all, and this is sort of for everybody, but I'll start with Sian. Do you find it weird watching the finished result? When you sit down and watch the finished episode, what everybody else is watching on TV, is it really strange to see what got in, what got cut? And also, are you able to sit back and enjoy it, or are you just really critical of your performance?
It depends on the project, and it depends how many times I've watched it, honestly. Like with Fleabag, it's kind of weird because there's loads of stuff I'm deeply ashamed of.
Are you talking about the pencil hair?
that scene in particular, so that was only our third day on set, and that was my second day's filming, and it was a nightmare to film that scene. And so that's very strange for me, the response that it's had, because I just did not have a good experience making that particular moment. Like, yeah, it's just, it's hard, isn't it, when you and there are people on this who are the creators as well as the stars. So you understand, like, when you see all the holes, so you can see all the stuff, and it's only when, you get some distance, or you've watched it like 3,000 times, if you can bear it, that you can like get beyond yourself and get over yourself and enjoy it. But weirdly with Fleabag, I do sort of feel in some way divorced from that character because I'm so different to her, I think. And so I am able to kind of just watch the show as a whole and forget I'm in it in some way. But it's like a trick I have to play. But it's hard and it's weird, and I'll never ever not be critical.
Ncuti, obviously, Ncuti, your show is sex education is pretty out there in terms of like subject matter and young people talking about things that I literally have never discussed in my teenage years. But do you find when you watch it back, you're like, oh my god, that's how everything fits together and that's how the storylines all related? I mean, obviously you'd read the script, but it must feel kind of like amazing to see the finished show, and then also your performance in it and how it like you shone in it because you're incredible in it.
Oh, well, thank you very much. That's my favorite bit is watching everyone else's storylines. Just because I think when you're filming on set, you're quite secluded. Is that the right word? You're secluded from everyone else. You're only filming your bits unless your storyline intertwines with other people. Certainly in our situation, because it's a school and there's so many kids, everyone's got their own individual storyline. So I would rarely see, if it's not Otis or Adam, then I don't know what anyone else is. I don't know what the other characters are doing. So it's always a joy to watch the finished performance and be like, oh, is that what you were doing? Is that what you were doing with the banana? Is that what you were doing with the dildo? Like, I see. I really enjoy it. And I also really enjoy, like, when you get the scripts and you read what's going to be happening to other characters that you have fallen in love with also, and then you see the finished product, it's always very fulfilling. Yeah.
Youssef, you obviously are in a lot of the show, so you kind of must know sort of how things are fitting together, but obviously everything's filmed out of sequence with your show. So do you have to kind of remember what you came into that scene with from the last scene and stuff? Is that difficult?
Yeah, that's something I said on day one to the director, David Sant, which was help me remember where I am in the story, because that's going to be the biggest thing. And it's about tracking the arc of the character, and so at every point, no matter what the scene is, it's got to do something to the character, and that's the number one thing that I would think about, is where am I in the story, and where am I in the character's development, and how aware am I of it, and all the intricacies that are involved there. And so watching it at the end, when it's all said and done, that's the nail-biting moment, is like, did I track that properly? Because God knows I've done stuff when I haven't. You know? I thought I was in the right place, and then I watch it back and I'm like, oh my God, that was absolutely terrible. But that's about having that, you know, when you have a great team of people around you, it kind of happens naturally. Everybody kind of protects the arc and protects everybody else's storylines as well, you know.
I mean, you've got the opposite of that, because it's a sketch show, so every scene is like selling a different character.
Yeah.
You know, how do you sort of adjust to just doing like character after character after character, just changing it up all the time?
I mean, I guess it's been my dream, like, to be able to be sort of transformative as an actor, and to be like, I always say, like a young Gary Oldman, sort of, where you don't really know what he looked like for the first maybe 10 years of his career. Like, he could walk right past you, you wouldn't have a clue. And so it's a real dream to just be like, I'm going to play a 70-year-old today. I'm going to play a fat boy after lunch, and that for me, that's just the dream. Like, you get to just play and be. So there's nothing remotely difficult about that. As in, for me, as in terms of it's fun. It's fun. The challenge is obviously then having to kind of differentiate and sort of let other things go. But it's just so much fun, and it's silly, isn't it? It's a really silly show, so you don't have to take yourself too seriously, you know. You can,
I mean, you write a lot of the script as well, right? Between you all, the cast writer.
I'm one of the.
So with that in mind, like, I mean, I think Guz and Jamie have this as well. You kind of like sing the theme tune, write the theme tune, you know, like you kind of live or die by your own jokes because you wrote them. Jamie, do you find that like when you're performing jokes, are you changing them all the time when you're on camera, thinking actually the energy isn't right on this, or do you just keep doing the same joke again and again and again till it's right? What's your sort of attitude to that?
I think that a lot of the time I sort of decide on a sort of sound of the joke or a sound of the rhythm, and then the words kind of come second fiddle. I was saying this on a thing we just did, but it's like a lot of the time would be like, I know that I want Stath to go like, oh, dun, du, 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 du. And it's just like, well, whatever goes in that kind of thing. but you know, a lot of the time, you know, you are sort of you're stuck to the story. So sometimes doing those variants and stuff on set is just to create an energy for you to be able to go back to the script and make the story work properly. I think.
Do you like watching it back, or do you sort of like, are you just sitting there going, oh, that could have been better, or oh, that worked so well, or that was the day everyone was having an argument and we got away with it, sort of thing? Or
oh yeah, there's definitely a sense a lot of the time of like remembering what that day was like. But if the day was hell, it's usually a pleasant surprise to see like, oh, we did actually shoot something, because your memory of it is like the fact that there was like I don't know, a rat in your lunch or something.
I've had the same caterers as you, actually.
But yeah, no, I watched, just when you were talking about the edit, I mean, the first few cuts, my big note is just like, get my face off of the screen. Like, but the reasons that I want my face off of the screen are not helpful for the show. It's like, you know, I have a big nose, and you know that light is hitting it in a very, very way. So can we just, that isn't helping the story. People will be distracted by that.
Unlike now when they're distracted by your wallpaper, so that's good. And
it's not
Guz,
Stop telling people it's not yours. You know it's yours. You know it's
yours. Guz, you started as a stand-up, right? Do you? I've always found watching my own stand-up really hard, because I'm awful. But do you find watching yourself acting and yourself doing stand-up really different? Like, or do you see it all as like a similar character doing a thing, or do you have different views to how you watch yourself doing different things?
Do you know the only approval that I'm ever looking for is from my mom, yeah? And whether it's stand-up or Man Like Mobeen or on Netflix, her opinion is still that I'm a dickhead, innit? So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I'm watching or how I'm watching it, there's still a very long-ass way to go. But like, just in terms of everything that everyone's been mentioning, like, when we started Man Like Mobeen as a show, 3 years ago, the very first series, me and my co-leads, we were on set the very first day. It's first thing in the morning, and we were like a bunch of year 10 kids that get kicked out of mainstream education and they get taken out on a day trip. We didn't know what any of the words meant. People were like, would you like sides? Would you like sides? I'm like, yeah, I've just had my breakfast done. We'll have chips later on. Yeah, we'll have chips later. We didn't know anything about any of the terminology, any of the uses of the words. So for me, every single time we do a project, because it's so early on, we just learn, and you know, everybody on this live stream as well, just look at the array of programs and skill sets they bring to the teams that they do. It's a madness, man. We're learning all the time.
Do you have to stick very closely to the script? Ncuti, do you ever get to improvise, or is it like, these are the words, people have spent hours writing them, I'm going to stick to them? I'm saying this as an embittered writer, but are you are you like a slave? Are you like a slave to the script, or is there room to sort of mess about and add stuff?
I try my best to be a slave to the script, because obviously people have spent time writing, so it's always good to say those words. But I do try to. I think like it just depends on the character that I'm playing. If there's a character that I'm playing that I feel a particular connection to and understand in a particular way, then I will at least raise the conversation of discussing like a different way of saying it, or adding. Sometimes I'm just naughty and I'll just add my own words in just because I can and will. But pardon?
Sorry, I was gonna say, in Sexed, there are some West Africanisms in there that I'm like, man, put that in himself. I'm sure.
I do. Well, yeah. So yeah, like if I connect to the character, like I connected to Eric. Eric is West African. I'm East African. But I had a bit of an understanding of that world, and so I don't know. I tried to add a few things in here and there, but it always depends on the character that I'm playing. I feel like if I was playing like, I don't know, an Etonian Oxbridge graduate, I wouldn't quite know how to ad lib in that. But with Eric, I was like, okay, I've got this.
Youssef, how much of it is improvised and how much of it is scripted? And do you, because I've worked with actors in the past who if you ask them to improvise a bit, it sort of throws them and they don't feel comfortable with it. And then I've worked with other actors who've loved it and just want to, you know, do add amazing jokes and stuff. Where do you fall in that? Do you prefer the script or?
I definitely prefer the discipline of the script. I need a very rigid frame within which to play, and I love feeling free inside a very strict frame. So the script I love. I was one for quite a few years to read a line and go, "Ooh, I'd like to adjust that," and then asking the writer if I could change a particular line and stuff. And sometimes just to show respect, I'd ask if I could change the word "the" to the word "and" or something like that. and then some writers go, "No," you know, and then you're stuck. But I worked with a guy named Nick Murphy, a director named Nick Murphy, former BAFTA winner, and he said, "No, there's a discipline to saying lines that you need to remember." And since then, I've kind of gone, okay, somebody has sat down for a long time, written these words. I've got to find a way of making the words work. So that's my approach to it. The other side of the coin is when you're doing comedy and you've got a writer like Rufus Jones, you change the script at your peril because any of my attempts to sort of make it funnier did not work because he's thought of the funniest version of it. There were some lines that were, you know, the logic of the character's journey wouldn't make sense if I said things in a certain way, or the lines. What I pay particular attention to is what does the line suggest about the character's mindset, and if there's something that's slightly off, that's something Rufus wouldn't have thought about or hadn't thought about because he doesn't have that my personal experience of it. And so we would talk about that and sort of adjust little things, but it's about tiny adjustments as opposed to just going for it. And he was extremely generous and said, listen, very fast and loose with this stuff. If you want to change things, you want to do anything. And I tried very hard to go in there and just be like, yeah, let's just see what happens. And you kind of can't when the writing is really good.
Yeah.
Writing is great. It's like you change it at your peril, you know.
Guz, you are your own boss in Mobeen. So do you find you get to a point where you want to change stuff, or do you speak to the other actors and say, please stop changing stuff, or how do you feel about it all?
It's the polar opposite to what Youssef said. He's making me feel bad, and I write my own show. Like I should be sticking to my own script. Like in terms of the way that we work, it's a very quick setup and shoot situation. Budgets are low, and so we have to make sure we're getting the best material we can. And you know, from the first series when we were all getting to know each other, from writers and directors and producers and stuff, we spent a bit of time and gave jokes 1 or 2 goes. But if I've written a dead joke, by the 3rd series, we can immediately identify it and say, yo, that joke is dead, move on, let's improv something around it. And I'm just blessed to be around people who are really talented with improv, from Tolu to Tez to Dua, you know. And we really enjoy getting that level of improv out because it makes the script and the show feel a little bit more real and raw, you know.
Sian, when you're doing obviously Phoebe's scripts and you know they're really, really, really so funny, but do you get a sort of say if you feel like something isn't working or it doesn't quite fit the sort of your character, whatever, or any situation, do you ever sort of talk beforehand and say let's adjust that or change that, or is it like what you receive in your sides is what you do?
What I receive in my sides 30 seconds before shooting the scene. I will do my best to remember. I mean, the thing is, you know, Phoebe and I went to drama school together, so we've known each other for like nearly 17 years now. So we have a trust and a dialogue with one another, and so she's such an extraordinary collaborator, Phoebe, because she isn't precious. But our relationship on set is probably different to how she is with other people, because she can, I don't know, be vulnerable with me and say, oh, I don't think this is working, what do you think? Otherwise she'll go and like talk to Harry, our director. But there's been times where I've sort of said, this is good enough, you need to leave it alone. And she has. And there's been times where I've said, I remember she rewrote this scene. This was in series 1 actually. And she completely rewrote this sequence and she showed it to me and I read it to her and I didn't even say anything. She just looked at my face and she said, the other one's better, isn't it? And I was just like, you know, so it's amazing when you have that kind of dynamic. I doubt I'm going to experience that with anyone ever, you know, again. And that's why I hope she keeps employing me. But it's, yeah, I mean, honestly, those scripts are, they feel perfect. Like, and she really played to the strengths of our team on the second series in particular, because she just wrote to those rhythms so hard and so specifically, so deliberately. And there was definitely, I love what Youssef was saying about like freedom within the form. So you feel it's a really safe environment for you to speak up. If you're feeling like it's difficult, whatever, but to be honest, Phoebe always knows. She knows when the rhythm's off. And like even the paedophile joke that's in Ep 1, Andrew Scott lands, like that just came out of her and Andrew like hiding away in a corner, and they came and tested it on us on camera, and we just, you know, somehow kept it together. But yeah, so it's stuff like that. So it does feel playful, but you want to honor the script. Yeah.
Gbemi, when you're obviously you know, being part of a sketch group is such an ensemble, do you just have to trust the people you're in the sketch with, that they're, you know, that they're not going to go too big or too small, and you're not going to have to go too big or too small to match them? Or how do you sort of balance it all with so many people doing different
I think the work was done by Kemji Defonia in the casting of us, because I think we are just such a good unit and we work so well together. And I don't think there's ever been a thought of, oh, I need to be more like this or less like this. I think everyone knows their sweet spot as a performer, and we kind of complement each other really well. Like I might work with like Samson, like I love, like with this question about script, like I love like starting with the script. But I love us also on Famalam. It's one of the first gigs I have where we start with the script, and then you can literally just go, okay, we got that. Now let's chuck it out and just improvise the crap out of it and play. And there are some actors who are very script orientated, and some who you wonder if they actually learn their lines.
Which one are you? Which one are you?
I learn my lines, dagnammit. No, I'm a line learner. I'm actually I'm a bit like I don't know about the and I'm really pernickety, but what Famalam's given me is this freedom to go, oh, but I can play. And so when you have someone like Samson Kaya, who is just mischievous on set, you can just sort of play with him, and it's fun, and you don't know what it's going to be from day to day, which is such a gift, really. Yeah.
Jamie, you're in a similar position, that your show is just full of like a bunch of incredibly funny people. So do they chip in with stuff as well, or do they have ideas and you work with them, or do you have ideas and then they work with your ideas, or how does that work?
It's different every day, but I think a lot of them have just done the work already by being as funny as they are, and they're all people I've been watching do live comedy and TV comedy for like 10 years. So I've already sort of become obsessed and like addicted to their rhythms and the things that they do, and you know, I've sort of written that into the script as is. But what usually happens is on the day we'll do some kind of a read through, and because I don't know if anyone else finds this, but when you enter a location, it can you don't necessarily always get exactly what you want out of a location. So all the jokes and stuff that you plan to make happen don't really make sense as much there, or you find like new things. Like if you didn't realize there was going to be like a table in front of you, you could like put a glass of water on the table and push it like far enough away from you that you sort of have to reach in the scene, and then you make a thing out of that. But I think stuff like that will impact on all the actors. So what we do a rehearsal of the lines, and I sort of find them all so funny and respect them so much that I'm sort of like shaking looking over the thing to see if people find it funny. the moments that seem to tank, you just have to embrace and go, well, that was obviously crap. So I run away and sort of scroll down a rewrite based on that read. But what I'll do is I'll talk to everyone about that and be like, did that feel uncomfortable in your mouth? Can you think of something that maybe feels more comfortable, etc.? And then usually we'll just do it based on that script, and then maybe we'll do an improv pass. And this is a very administrative answer. I'm a robot. Thank you. I'm
going to take away the quote, did that feel uncomfortable in your mouth? So I've always wondered when I've written a character, so you sort of write them in the script and you know who this character is and where their point of views are coming from. But then you hand it over to an actor and they just take it somewhere you never thought it was going to go. And in my case, they just make it so much better than what was on the script. And I wonder how do you do that? Like, do you take the script and then do you just go for like long walks talking to yourself, trying to work out who that person is? Or Youssef, when you were trying to work out who Sammy was, did you sort of know as soon as you read it, this is that character? Or did it take a while for you to sort of get your head around who this person was as a sort of 3D, real, truthful identity sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is I genuinely believe the writing just told me. The writing was so good. When the writing is great, I find that I can see how it's supposed to be played. And sometimes I felt like I came on set and I just said words, and then I would, on my way home, everybody would be patting me on the back for the good job I did. And I'm thinking, I didn't do anything. I came in and I was supported by Rebecca and Oakley and David and everybody and Rufus. And I just said Rufus's lines. And that's how I felt a lot of the time. So that tells me that the script informed a lot of what I did. But then there's the flip side of it, which is because of the subject matter and because of the seriousness behind the comedy. There are real world counterparts to our story that are very serious, very tragic, very sad, very heavy. And I wanting to do right and do justice by that truth is where the work came in, because there were lots of walks around the block trying to think, okay, I feel like I'm seeing a tiny hole in a needle, and I need to thread this character through this really delicate space. That's kind of where I was coming from in it, because I didn't want to, it's a bit of a balancing act,
Yeah. Guz, you've got, in Mobeen, you seem to cover some really difficult subjects really deftly, like really, it's so funny watching you talk about stuff, but when you actually think about what you're talking about, like knife crime or, police brutality or whatever, it's difficult subject matter. How do you kind of, when you're performing those lines, try not to make it sound trite or, like you're undermining it? And do you see what I mean? Like, how do you balance the kind of subject matter with the performance?
Yeah, I think the most important thing from a writing perspective and a performance perspective is like, none of it can ever be preachy. And the reason for that is that, people are tuning in fundamentally to have a laugh. But, it's something which we found very rare when it was trying to sell some of these themes, like, going to the BBC and saying, yeah, we want an entire episode pretty much in the back of a riot van with a far right-wing leader. BBC, as you can imagine, were a bit like, yeah, not sure that's going to be funny, mate. But we were like, listen, don't you worry about that. Leave that up to us. Because the reality of the characters' lives that we portray is that, yeah, they're going through, socioeconomical difficulties. There's a lack of education. They're involved in and around crime, but not everything is doom and gloom. Do you know what I mean? So finding those moments of levity and finding the humor that takes place. If you walk outside my front door right now, people are living very difficult lives, but they find humor in the worst of circumstances. So for us, always making sure we're honest with what we're writing and performing, it wasn't actually that difficult to find the humor in it.
Sian, you had similar ones with obviously the miscarriage storyline, which was quite, really amazing to see it on screen, because I don't feel like it's something that's ever really talked about and done so beautifully. But did you ever get a feeling of like, oh God, this is a big one and I'm going to have to get this really right? Or did you just read the script and you were like, okay, I know I trust this script and I know it's going to be fine, sort of thing?
Well, just what Guz is saying, like, I think humans are inherently hilarious. And actually, if you just play it straight down the line, it will be funny. Like, and I think you'd play the truth of situation. Like, you know, I think that's why comedy is the truly experimental space where we're actually, like, you know, trying to bust through an old paradigm. I think that's the only place where, like, TV is, like, truly having a kind of evolution, because, like, people are willing to take risks, by which I mean, like, the creators, not the gatekeepers.
Yeah, right.
But I just think, and guess what, guys? There's no risk. Just, like, makes it. But yeah, so with that scene again, you just have to play the truth, and that's why I don't think it doesn't matter what script you're presented with. And I think the genre is so restrictive, and I feel like we're in a space where I feel like there might be a need to move beyond it, because I don't think things fit in so neatly anymore to, like, these binary ideas. It's I don't think it's, like, it necessarily serves the medium. And like, if you look at the projects that are represented and being recognized by BAFTA this year, you're just kind of like, yeah, you know, there's yeah, I think it's exciting that audiences are actually hungry for more complex and human stories. And like, because that miscarriage, that's based on a real thing that happened to a friend of Phoebe's. Like, it wasn't a dinner, but she was at a business lunch and she had a miscarriage in the bathroom, and then, like, went back to her business lunch because she didn't, she had no other point of reference. She was like, oh, I have to just carry on. And and initially, I think there was a whole, like, Twitter backlash, because people like, that would never happen. And then, like, all these women's stories came out that said that happened to me. And and it's unbelievably common. It's never spoken about. And yeah, it's amazing to, you know, that, I don't know, women are being given more to talk about these things that are just so natural and part of our day-to-day lives.
Femi, when you're doing your characters, do you find, because obviously your show has got a lot of like African characters and, you know, different voices that we might have normally seen on a sketch show, and do you ever worry, oh, I hope people aren't laughing at this character? I hope they're always, I mean, I feel like they're so well written and such funny characters, you're totally laughing with them. But are you ever considering, like, you know, we find that funny, but are the wrong people going to look at this in a different way, or whatever? Or is it just something you can't be asked to worry about?
No, I think I always just go, my job is to put the work out there and to be as honest and as integrous with the work that we're doing. I can't really be responsible for how someone might misinterpret or what I was trying to do or what we were trying to do. But I definitely think when the joke is with the people whose story it is, there is more nuance and less occasion for it to be. I mean, I've been an actor for a minute, and I've literally gone into jobs where they go, can you just do an African accent, because that'll be fun, you know? And I've had those words said to me, and it's like, why is that funny? So I think when we're playing aunties and things, we're not going this accent because aunties are it's funny. We're doing this because these are our aunties. This is what happens in the party, and I'm now considered an auntie on the show, and I literally, after that sketch, took all the jollof rice that wasn't used home. I'm not ashamed to say it happened. It's our truth and it's our life, and it's our stories, and maybe some of them are heightened, but so I think you can't really go wrong when there's that truth there. Yeah,
and there's also universality to it. Is that the word? In that, like, everybody's answer a bit competitive. Doesn't matter where you're from, you know. And families are embarrassing, and there's always leftovers that need to go home. That's for sure.
There's a whole lot of, like, Filipino people going, no, this is a Filipino thing, and then other people going, no, this is an Asian thing, and you know, so it was really, really lovely to go, okay, we're just sort of united by our crazy aunties, you know, across culture. It's really nice. Yeah.
Jamie, how much of what you do is based on people who you know, and how much is it you just, you know, your own twisted imagination?
Well, it's hard to say because everyone in the show on the surface is very stupid. No, there's like, I think that it's trying to capture a general kind of goodness and sweetness about a lot of the people that I grew up with and went to school with, people who sort of, I don't know, I think there's just sort of, it's more just like general personality types that you see over and over again, and you see like that they're generally seen as flawed, but to kind of like tap into like a goodness in them is the sort of aim. Like my character, for example, is just like, he just does everything wrong, but assumes it's fine because he's him. It's like, I wouldn't do something wrong, would I? Surely not. Even though that thing's like broken and got like black liquid dripping out of it. Like, I swear that's like fine because it's me. Like, but you know, but deep down that comes from a place of like self-confidence, and maybe he like was like bullied at school and all these things. And when you tap into those things, and you know that like he loves his dad and his sister. I don't know, I just kind of wanted to, like, as the series went on, I realized it took a while for me to work out what the show was about. Like series 1, they're just he's an arse.
This is the second series that you, after watching the first series, you realised what the show was about.
Well, I think in a lot of ways, yeah. Like I find the character reprehensible for the first few episodes of series 1 because I've been working on it for like 6 years before we started shooting it. So I was just like, oh, everyone knows his context because I knew it so well. I just sort of assumed that people would just assume like, oh yeah, because I'd done so much work on it. You know, I've got like white photos of whiteboards being like, these are the instances where he was bullied at school, sort of thing. And it's like, how the hell is an audience supposed to know that? I remember a friend texting me like a few episodes into series 1 being like, oh, so he's actually like a nice guy deep down. And I was like, yeah, didn't you read all my notes that I made over 7 years?
Ncuti, you obviously, you're nominated for your you're nominated for the second series, right, of Sex Education for the BAFTA. That's right, isn't it? No, first series.
No, first series. Yeah.
First series. Okay, sorry, I literally just watched second series. But when you got the part and you sort of sit down and read it, how much of it are you like, I can do what I want with this? Like, did you? I mean, you know, Eric's a decade younger than you, so were you like, I sort of have to work out what somebody 10 years younger than me does with their face and their words and their actions, or did you just totally tap into the character and you kind of got him, or did you sort of have to build him? How did that work? Getting a script through. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a good question. I don't know how I'm going to answer it. Yeah, I think like what a lot of the guys have said, I think I got the script, I read it, and there was a lot there, and I was like, there's a lot I can play with, and I was obviously aware that he's 10 years younger than me, but much like with the humor, I was like, that's not something that I can play directly. I can't try and like emulate youth because I'm not 16 anymore. So I just have to play the truth of the scene, and it's so well written that it's like, hopefully it comes across. Hopefully the youth comes across because it's coming from the writing, which is what I'm saying. So hopefully, if I just play the truth of the scene, hopefully I come across 10 years younger. But it was rich and full of a lot of stuff that I was really surprised that a very middle class white Australian woman had written this gay black character so well, and so nuanced, and aspects of his culture and his parents and all of that was all in the script already. That wasn't something I had to develop or build on. And there was also quite an open dialogue between myself and Laurie. And she wanted to make sure that she was getting things right when it came to things like the church and other aspects of his cultural identity. And so it was always a conversation on Sex Education. It was always a conversation with Laurie and the cast as to where these characters are going, how they're growing and who they are as people. And so, yeah, I guess in a way it was like a constant building. But I tried not to go in with an idea of like who he was in terms of his youth or his humor or anything like that. I just tried to let the writing come through.
So do you kind of like tonally or like energy wise, do you match it to what other people are doing in the scene, or do you go in and say, well, this is kind of my scene, so therefore everybody matches it to what I'm doing? Does that make sense? Like, I'm interested as like who kind of sets the scene in terms of how big or small or how much energy there is or whatever?
I think definitely our leader in chief, Ben Taylor. He sets the scene, and I think his energy definitely sets the scene for the whole set. He's a very playful guy, and that kind of sets the precedent to the atmosphere on set. Like, it's a very playful set, and obviously the subject matter, like, we're all kids, so we're all playing kids, so there's a lot to bounce off. Everyone's coming with energy that everyone's bouncing off, and when you're in a school building as well, you're always remembering the stories like that you had when you were at school, and like, oh, I did this, or I drew a dick on this locker as well. And so there's a lot of energy that's coming through from everyone, and so you just bounce and play off that. In terms of my scenes and who sets the vibe, I'd say, do you know what, with Ben, we've got a thing called a naughtiness style. So I'll try and do the scene. No, I'll do the scene, and I'll do it religiously. I'll get all the lines out well, and then he'll like amp up the naughtiness style and be like, okay, you can amp this up to like 5 now, and it will be like level 5 ad-libs. And then sometimes he'll like amp it up to 10, and it's like, shoot, he's on like level 10. Shoot, he's on level 10. There's no stopping him. So
the X-rated version.
The X-rated version. So that's how our scenes tend to go. It's a very collaborative process in set.
Shall we go to some questions? Because there's a lot of people called Jessica asking questions. It seems to be all people called Jessica. But do you mind if I go to some questions? I don't know what they're going to be like. They could be great. They could be awful. So this first one is from one of the Jessicas. It says, is there a scene that you are particularly proud of performance-wise? And if so, why? Let's start with Guz. Is there a favourite scene that you've got that you just love?
And... Smash, Guz.
You know what? The one scene, the only reason I'm proud of myself is because I got through it without busting up for the 57th time. There's an actor in our show called Mark Silcox. He's a legend. He might actually be a real life serial killer. He might get his own Netflix show one day. Yeah? He turns up to set, and I'm like, yo, Mark, how's it going? I'm fine. Have you learned your words? No, I haven't. I'm like, okay, cool. That's no problem, brother. Let's go. He did an iconic scene where he pours Ribena onto somebody's carpet, right? He pours it onto the carpet, and then he has a fight with them. And at the point that you meant to have, like, for professional reasons, like a stunt coordinator, whatever. And we didn't have one, so the director was like, guys, you got to make sure you really take it easy. And we had to physically separate Silcox from the other performer. Because even after they said cut, Silcox wanted to bang this guy in the face. He takes his job very seriously. I found this shit amazing, blood. Like, there was all kinds of swearing in different languages I'd never heard in my life. The last word I heard as he went out the door was, he's a cunt. And I was like, oh, relax. Yeah, I'm just glad I made it through that scene. It was hilarious.
Jamie, what's your favorite scene from probably from the second series or from any of the series?
Well, I don't know about favorite, but the one that stands out in my head as sort of like in the same vein that Guz is talking of, I'm glad I got through it, was like I did a thing where I have to try and get out of a car, and then I get caught in a seatbelt, and then I get caught again in the seatbelt, and then I go and slam my leg in the car door. But I was like cheating it and sort of putting my finger in the way to block it. And I was going around to look at the rushes to be like, does it look real? Does it look real? And then I had this sort of eureka moment, which I think says a lot about the process of acting sometimes, where I went, the problem is I'm not doing it for real. I should just do it for real. And you go, well, the reason you're not doing it for real is because it's really dangerous. So I was like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, fine. I just worked out what the problem is. I've been having my fingers in the way of the door. I should just do it. And I slammed my leg in the car door like as hard as I could. And luckily, like, there's not really much dialogue after that moment. But when they cut, I was like, I've like broken my leg. There was just like a huge bruise from my thigh all the way down to my ankle.
Was Charlotte Ritchie genuinely laughing at you at that point?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I think she was just in shock at what I just done. And I remember going over to the monitor and being like, imagine if that isn't the one we use. But luckily it was. So I'd say that one. But you know,
Demi, obviously the answer up there with some of the funniest, but what's your favourite character that you've done on the show, that or your favourite sketch that you've done that's just made you like love your job?
I love playing Fat Sam. I love just playing the kid who just is likes to eat everyone's food and I just have so much fun with it, and it's just this sort of stoicness that you kind of have to play with him, and I just love the understatedness of it, even though it is really over the top in terms of how I look. I love that. And I also, there was a thing in series 1 where we William and Funke, there was this thing where I did with Samson, we do a sort of a Nigerian sort of Richard and Judy-esque kind of couple. And I love that moment because I've never laughed to the point of terror before. I don't know if anyone's ever had that, where you're laughing and you're suddenly your body doesn't know, your body starts to go, oh crap, I think there's a problem. I think this person is in a sort of fearful place. And then they start giving you tears because your body thinks you're going through something really traumatic, but you're just laughing. And I've never laughed that much. And watching it, they're just editing around Samson and me corpsing the entire time. You watch it, I'm laughing. Why is this lady?
I bet the editor both loved and hated you equal amounts that day.
Yeah. So I think the ones that make you laugh and just those are the memorable ones. Just
Ncuti, what will you take away as your favourite sort of scene from Sex Ed?
My favorite scene, do you know what? My favorite scenes from Sex Ed are probably the ones that I'm not in. Like, I love the one, like the It's My Vagina scene, the bus scene at the end of season 2 as well was another favorite scene of mine. One that I've done, I think any scene where I'm in heels, because I'd never worn heels before, and that was like a very new experience. There always seemed to be like a lot of hills whenever I had a scene with heels. And so it was like, like stairs of hills, or like shooting up midnight and I'm in a pair of pum pum shorts and like batty riders and it's freezing cold. Like, any scene I completed when Eric is in one of his more daring outfits, I was always happy that I
you deserve a BAFTA just as services to heels, I think. That's Youssef, which scene do you feel like
I had the most
funniest? Yeah, you had the most.
The one I had the most fun at was the Marmite scene. I have a WhatsApp video of when I first read that scene about a year before we shot, and I'm crying in the video to Rufus because I love that moment so much. And then on the day it didn't disappoint, and into sort of a little scene in the first episode of the first series. And it was preceded by a scene where Rebecca Staten and Rufus Jones are at the door talking about me while I've been given a sandwich to eat, and it's a sort of, this is a refugee, he's just made it to England, the first bite to eat. So there's only one way of eating it, which is to sort of ravenously stuff it into my mouth. And I ate 21 sandwiches that day.
Oh my God.
This is before I had to start eating copious amounts of Marmite. And
do you actually like Marmite?
I do. I'm partial to Marmite on toast in small amounts, but taking.
So you're the only person in the world who's indifferent to Marmite. Completely undermine the advertising campaign.
I might love it. I might hate it.
There's your dating profile, right?
Exactly.
There.
Yeah.
Sian, what scene do you remember the most about just enjoying and finding the funniest?
I mean, similarly to what some of the guys are saying, like it's more the scenes that I'm not in are my favorite, because yeah, I mean, like in terms of challenging the miscarriage scene, that frame that's on me, we filmed that for 7 hours because we couldn't find the right angle. And so that was like really hard. So just getting through that day was like really hard. I honestly give any of my scenes that have come out well, like I give it all to the editor, because whatever, like he's a genius. I think my favorite scene it isn't one of my scenes. It's a scene with Andrew Scott and Phoebe, and it's the end of episode 3, and they're in the church garden, and it's where Andrew's talking about a fox, his relationship with foxes.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite scene, and that's where the fourth wall's broken. And I like, just like you, Youssef, when I read that, this is, you know, well before we started filming, and Phoebe was like, can I send you the scripts? I'm really scared for you to read them. And she only sent me the first 3, and I've got a photo on my phone, and I was just like bawling. And I sent her this photo because I was like, yeah, it was, so that for me is like the most like special. And shout out to Jamie Demetriou in a sex shop in series 1.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said in series 1, because that could have come out as a real revelation. Here's a good question. This is from Maureen. She says, who or what was your inspiration or moment that made you pursue acting as a career? Bemi, is there anyone in particular who you saw and were like, that's what I want to do?
No, I remember doing the nativity play, and they needed a Mary, and no one wanted to touch the boys' hands because they had germ. And I was like, look, I'm gonna warm up, and I'm gonna do this thing. Hold his hand, it's gonna be all good. And then at the end of this, and just getting applause, and I literally got addicted to applause. And I think I was just like, I love this. Like, I love the sort of, I love an audience response. And I think that's and then I started sort of finding actors that I loved and fell in love with. But yeah, it was Mary that made me want to.
The Virgin Mary is your
Virgin
muse,
Mary,
much like many Renaissance painters before you. Youssef, who did you see that sort of set you on the path to becoming a brilliant comedy actor?
I don't know about brilliant comedy actor, but I when I was a kid, I watched Fred Astaire, and I would go around my parents' flat in my socks, acting like I was some fantastic tap dancer. And I kind of
I'm just thinking of you like Tom Cruise in Risky Business or whatever it is, where he
it was
slides
just
in.
imagine a 6-year-old doing that. That's exactly what it was. Yeah, and it's exactly what it was. No, but the decision I made was we took a trip to Stratford-upon-Avon from Morocco with my school, and we watched production of Henry V, and Ian Glenn played Henry V, and he swung out and over the audience, what looked like over the audience, on a big chain for the sort of close the wall up with our English dead speech. And I was just like, I'm gonna do this. And it was a big pyrotechnics and everything, and it was all blowing up, and it was quite special. Yeah, really.
That is an impressive school trip. We just went to Bird World, so I'm very jealous of you. Jamie, who was your comedy heroes when you got into all of this?
I mean, all the classics, everyone knows them. I mean, I suppose my dad is probably as a kind of like origin point. Like, I don't know, so much mad stuff would go on in our house that sort of resembled story structure that you sort of eventually start to go, oh, and I can tell these stories to people at school, and they become, it's like, oh, they just work. I don't have to add anything to them. Like, I remember my dad used to run like a Greasy Spoon cafe, and he once came home and he was like, Jamie, look at the internet and find out what was the name of the ship in the film The Titanic. And I was like, you thought the internet was just like a room full of people in our house making calls and getting answers. I didn't know what it was. And I was like, are you joking? The Titanic? And he was like, I bet Bert 15 pounds is the Mary Rose. Right, Bert, and what are you doing? But I kind of think stuff like that, it's like me and my sister would just like die laughing and be like, that's objectively funny. There's no like, there's no strings to that. We've got to try and do something with that. But yeah.
Sian, who did you, as a comedy performer, who do you look at and go, God, they're just brilliant, and that's something I want to follow in their footsteps, kind of thing?
I mean, to be honest, I didn't really have anything like that. Like I grew up doing amateur dramatics in my area. I mean, I knew when I was like 7 years old that I wanted to be an actor. So I joined the group, and we did The Wizard of Oz. I played a Munchkin, and then I got like rite of passage, and then I got stage fright. So I didn't do the show the next year, but my sister did it, and they did The Little Mermaid. And I had this like really strong like feeling that I can remember like it was yesterday, where I was sat in the audience and I was watching the show, and I knew that I needed to be, or I wanted to be, on the stage and not in the audience. And then I did like loads of Amdram, but I did like musical theatre basically until I was 18. Then I went to drama school, and then I was spat out into this industry, which like completely kind of like stifled me and wouldn't let me play character roles or anything like that. But of course, I had my little spy, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, there, who her hard intention was always to showcase that side of me. So I'm just like genuinely like indebted to her for the rest of my life. But Imelda Staunton was someone that I just was obsessed with. I saw her in her and Clark Peters and Henry Goodman and Joanna Riding in Guys and Dolls at the National when I was 14 years old. And then I went back and I queued from like 5 a.m. to like watch it again twice. So that was another huge moment where I knew I wanted to do this. But Imelda Staunton is probably the person that's been like consistently someone I've followed, but to my shame, like comedy, I know nothing about. Like I learn from all of these incredible people that I am totally in awe of. Yeah, I don't know.
I can't believe that, because you certainly don't look like that. You look like you nail every joke, and your timing is so perfect when you're doing those lines, and that's more than the script. That is so much about the performance, and timing is impossible. You can't learn timing. You either know it or you don't. But
maybe something to do with musicals. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. Ncuti, who do you look up to, or who did you have in mind when you got into all of this sort of comedy side of things?
Do you know? So I've never played a comedic role before Eric. I'd never played one, and I'd never thought of myself as a comedic actor. In terms of getting into acting, it hadn't been like a burning passion that I had from growing up. I was like 17 in high school, couldn't decide what to do, and my teacher was like, "You need to go to drama school and not uni, because you're not gonna hack. you're not gonna hack uni." So I was like, "Okay, let me try drama school." Thankfully, I got in. Thankfully, I loved it. But it was mostly like classical theatre. I'd never played a comedic character, and I think I find people really funny, and I find like I didn't like people I meet on the street really funny, and I always like take little bits of what someone said and put them in. In terms of like inspiration for Eric, I watched a lot of, there's a YouTuber called Grace Adjolore I really liked, like random influences.
How do you say her name? Grace Adjolore?
Adjolore, yeah.
How do you spell her surname?
Ajilore.
Okay.
Yeah, I just was obsessed and watched a lot of that before my audition for Eric. But in terms of influences, look, everything. I tend to think that everyone around me is great, and I just steal whatever anyone else is doing and like add them to whatever I'm doing.
Guys, are your comedy heroes sort of stand-ups who are also actors, or are they straight up actors, or who do you go to when you're sort of looking for inspiration?
Yeah, listen, as a viewer, all of those classics from Chappelle to Martin Lawrence and everything they did, but like where I'm from, you don't do acting. You're not an actor where I'm from. And I think like after analysing it, mine comes from a lot of pain, you know. I got kicked out of drama in year 9, right? Because I wanted to be a Chris Tucker tree in the play, and my drama teacher was being a waste man. And she goes, nah, just be a normal tree. But listen, this wasn't a one-off incident. We did Romeo and Juliet once, yeah, and she said to me, you just be a brick. And I was like, look, I'm not even a brick in the story, bro. What do you mean? Be a brick. Can't I be a wall? Make me a wall. And she was like, no, stand in the corner and be a brick. So she was a waste man. And I think really all this acting is just to prove her wrong. So Miss Griggs, if you're out there, who's a brick now?
So Miss Griggs is your reason. Wow. This is a bit of a bigger question, I suppose, but it's useful for people who are watching, who are actors and sort of, you know, look up to you guys. What's your piece of advice for someone who's trying to maybe break into the kind of comedy acting? And is there anything in particular that you do when you're preparing for an audition that sort of gets you, that you feel like gives you an understanding of the script, or any way that you break it down, or on a sort of practical terms? Jamie, what do you do when you're auditioning? Do you sort of spend a lot of time with the script, or do you break it down, or do you sort of imagine who would play that, or how do you do it?
I think it depends. I think the moment I sort of like stopped getting like consistently turned down in auditions was when I started seeing them less as an audition and more as a meeting, which is potentially like, you don't want to go in being like rude, but if you go in being like, I'm going to work out whether I want to do this role as much as you're going to work out whether you want me, and you're just like, this is just what I have. If it's wrong for the show, then it's wrong for the show. And you know, part of that is working out what you have, like what's your take on this. Reading a script and going, I think they want this from this, abandoning that idea and going on to whatever the next thing you think is always my way of doing it. Creating like moments in it that are yours that no one else will give. I mean, I'm lucky enough now with Stath to have sat on the other side of the table and audition people, and it's always the people who do the thing that I didn't plan to be the case in the script that get the part, always. And that's, you know, obviously you don't want to, like, if someone's working in an office, you don't want to come in as a pirate. But like,
do you?
Well, I think everyone's changing the way they work now after that.
But yeah, I think it's just about genuinely just working out what you find funny about the part and what you can make your own in it. It's kind of vague, but yeah.
I mean, you obviously, you know, you've done a lot of comedy acting, and then you've also done a lot of sort of what I would call serious acting, because I don't know what the official word for that sort of stuff is. I saw you in The Last Tree recently, and I absolutely loved it. But how do you treat auditions, like comedy auditions, drama auditions, or whatever? Do you treat them the same, or do you go into comedy auditions in a different way that you would?
No, I don't treat comedy like this thing. I just treat it all like, this is a script, this is a character, and let's honor the words on the page, and if it's written well, that stuff will come out. But I a bit like Jamie, I started realizing I worked more when I just stopped caring so much about it, you know, how good I, you know, if I'm going to get it, and just actually go, you know what, we're going to play, let's just have some fun. And there'll be times when I'd be like, you know what, I'm going to give this a tricky accent, and I know they haven't asked for it, but I'm just going to, because why not? And then usually they'll be like, oh my God, we love the thing that you did with the thing. And it's just
the pirate. We love the pirate you did in The Office. That was amazing.
I'm going to give it a bit of pirate, you know? And that's usually when I'll get cast in something. When I just go, I'm just going to chance it and do this really weird out there thing that I just felt instinctually in that moment, and just try it and just go and have a punt, you know? And what that does mentally for me is it takes the pressure off. It stops it from being, it has to be a this or it has to be a that. And the other thing it does is it allows you to just be free, and there's a sort of opening. And I think people who are on the other side of the table, as it were, see energy. They see the energy that you're giving off. And if you're giving off an energy that is sort of effervescent, as well as being able to act, you know, all that stuff, there is something that I think draws them to you. And I've only just started realizing that I get jobs when I sort of walk in that kind of energy, in that kind of space more, you know?
Yeah.
Youssef, you're obviously you went to drama school. Am I right? I'm right. You went did a lot of what you learned at drama school help you with auditions, or was it something that you sort of learned in the years after drama school?
I I have 2 BAs in theatre. I went to uni and got my BA in theatre, and then I moved to England and needed to go back to school to make friends. So I kind of have I have the same degree twice. But I was a professional actor before going to drama school. I've kind of in terms of the audition stuff in America, they train you to audition, and I didn't really have too much of that at drama school. All the stuff I really kind of learned now, I learned just by doing, and I think that's the catch-22, is that you become better at it the more you do it. But of course, you need more auditions in order to be able to get more. You need to actually get the auditions. And what I always what I was very big on was knowing, know thyself, know who you are. And by that, I mean, know what people see when you walk into the room. And for me, that was the big thing for a very long time, was just playing to what I believe people saw when I walked into the room, which was actually a bit different from how I saw myself. And that realization that actually people can see something else, and you need to try and figure what that is. And of course, this is stuff that takes a lifetime. So it's active. It's stuff that you can work on every day to try and figure out how you come across. And I did, do whatever you need to do. And now what I tell everybody is to just get yourself into, as the guys have been talking about, get yourself into a state, a positive, happy, powerful state before you go inside the room, so that energy, as Gbemi was talking about, comes across, because that cuts through everything else, And remember, they don't want to see a opening night performance. They don't want to see a finished performance. They want to see a well thought out idea. And if you remember that, it gives you a lot more freedom to be able to just go in there and take control of this thing. You know what I mean? Like, yes, you finally got an audition, but actually take control of it. Do what you need to do. And like, as Jamie was saying, see it as an opportunity for you to do your thing in front of these people,
I've certainly found, like, being on the other side of the desk, as it were, there's projects that you get people in for and they don't suit that, but you got them in mind for something else further down the line. So like going in there with that energy and that kind of, excitement and passion is so key. Guz, do you hate auditions or do you relish them?
Bro, I think auditions are whack. The thing is, I might be wrong. I thought before I'd even been on an audition, I was already writing the first series of mine, Like Mobeen, I believe. So yeah. I'd never been to an audition. I bounced straight out of work life and into doing this. The one thing I will say is, like, it's something that 100 kids have asked me whilst we're in the end shooting Man Like Mobeen, and they're like, "Yo, bro, how do I even get to the audition bit?" And I think that's a really important thing. So for me, I look at every time I open Instagram, like there's other friends who've got in the industry and we've worked with before. Jamie's worked with them as well. And we are every 2-3 days pinging each other messages of up and coming performers who have no access to the industry. They don't have an agent. They don't know a special number to call to get an audition, but they're creating content. And I've seen like 3 people last week who are hilarious, bro, like legends in the flesh before their time. And they're just making videos on the gram, or they're putting them on Twitter or YouTube or whatever it is. So I would say to like anybody out there who believes that they have the skill set and they believe in themselves, create content, bro. And it can be as lo-fi as, grabbing your phone and turning it around on yourself in your living room. But really, like, social media is giving us the opportunity, myself included, for a whole host of people who'd never be able to access being a performer or the arts or going to drama school. And if you can create content yourself and put yourself out there, if you're good, someone's going to find you.
Sean, did you do a lot of scratch theatre, or is that what you'd say? I don't know how you say it in theatre, but like, sort of a lot of sort of trying stuff out and
R&D.
What do you call it? R&D.
R&D, like, I mean, I guess like there are always like things being workshopped, like always. I mean, my background is like theatre. I did like a decade of theatre and then I did Fleabag. So it's like that's my like bread and butter. So yeah, I've done years of that. It's always
but when you first started, were you doing a lot of theatre, and then casting agents would come and watch that, and then they'd be like, oh, do you want to come and get this audition? Or were you just being sent up for everything that you kind of fell into the...
I would say you don't really get auditions from anything like that. I think that's, casting agents just won't go to those things. I went to drama school. I was really lucky. I went when you didn't have to pay for it. So I was really lucky. Because my family wouldn't have been able to afford that, no way. And so yeah, it's and the thing is, I don't recommend drama school necessarily at all, even to anyone. Like, I had very, very challenging experience there.
Don't tell Youssef that, he's just done 2 of them. So 2 degrees.
Hey.
But yeah, I could have.
I think it depends. Like, some people have
no comment here.
Incredible experience. They definitely do not. The experience I had in no way prepared me for the harshness of this industry, or the reality of it even. Like, we definitely didn't do any audition prep, anything like that. And I have worked with as many people who are extraordinary that went to drama school as that didn't. Like, I don't think there is one way. And like what Guz is saying, like, everyone owns a camera now.
Yeah.
We can all do it. And I just think, and things, people are being discovered every single day because things go viral and whatever. But it's, I think theatre is a really hard place to start, but it's also very rewarding. And it is definitely like the space where I learned my craft without the exposure of like being on screen, I guess. I can't remember your original question. Oh, had I done a lot? Like, I guess I did. Like, when I came out, like, I've done,
right.
I did do those things, but and you know what, actually, what came from that, and I guess what came from drama school, the most important thing is a network of people. So actually, if you can get out and do that stuff, whether it's you're making stuff with your mates on your phone, or you show up to a scratch night at a theatre thing, you will meet collaborators and you will create things. I mean, Phoebe's company, Dry Right, we were doing these shows in a disused pub for years, like, and it was there was the writers that came from that, and directors, and I mean, it's kind of extraordinary who was in that gang. James Graham was one of the people that was part of that, who's obviously like done pretty well for himself. But it's I would say do that just to like create that network and recognize that no one is a competitor, everyone is a potential collaborator, everyone.
Ncuti, I'm coming to you last, but this is the last question. But when you did the audition for Sex Education, did you leave thinking, I have nailed that, that is my part? Or did you have to do loads of auditions and it just felt like nerve-wracking, or what happened?
For my last audition, yeah, do you know, kind of similar to what some of the guys have said. When I started auditioning for sex ed, I had come to a point where I thought that I was going to give up acting, because I just came out of a really like long spell of not working, and like just a couple. I mean, on theatre, you can't really save that much money when you live in London, and so I was like, I've not got any money. I need to go home. And so I was in a play just outside of London and started auditioning for Sex Education. But I just completely had the mindset that like, it's a Netflix show. They're not going to hire me anyway. I'm just going to go along. It will be good to meet the casting director, fine. But then once this play's done, I'm going to move back up to Scotland. So I was going in with an energy that was quite like, I don't really care. I don't really care about this show. I don't really care about any of this. I'm just going in and having fun. And they kept calling me back. And then in my final edition, I really because I was coming back and forth from outside of London, I was spending a lot of money, and I was like, this is exactly what I do not need right now. And so in my final edition, I was like, I really couldn't give a fuck, so I just started twerking.
Get them Ncuti.
There you go. That is, I think that's the perfect thing to end on. Is if in doubt, just start twerking. It doesn't matter. That'll get you the part.
But I knew after I did that, I looked at the producers' faces and I was like, I've got this role.
Well,
I've got this role.
I cannot thank you enough for all your incredible insight and inspiring performances, and congratulations on being nominated. And I just want to say a big thank you to Gbemi, Sian, Jamie, Youssef, Ncuti, and Guz, and good luck for the awards. And that's it. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Wow.
You're amazing.